everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's cold in here. I got jealous of watching everyone's videos filmed in front of a pretty bookshelf, and I didn't think it was possible for me to film in front of mine because everywhere where my bookshelves are, it's kind of dark and dim and there isn't good lighting. Our house is a mostly north-facing house, so we just don't get that much light. Finally, I was able to do a few magic tricks and create a good space to film in here in front of my bookshelf. So today I wanted to do a tag video about books for BookTube because I so enjoy watching other people's videos, and I've kind of been haunting around for a while now on YouTube, and just my wish list of books grows ever longer, and I love especially the tags and the TBRs and the wrap-ups, especially because I get to hear how the books were. I found a book tag by Read, Create, Repeat, Homeschool, and it's the Reader Role Model tag, and she was actually the creator of the tag. And I just thought that sounded like a good one for me to jump into and participate in. The Reader Role Model tag has 4 questions, and the first one is, who is your reading role model and why? Why do you look up to them? It was kind of hard for me to pick. There's several people that I know that read in my life that just set an example. Didn't really encourage me or discourage me, but just really set an example with reading. But I guess the number one would have to be my papa. I always remember, even from a very young age, he always had a book, and it was always usually small enough to fit in his back pocket. So I always really looked up to him for that, you know, just always having a book accessible to him, and that's how he filled every spare moment that he has and had and has. He never specifically encouraged me to read. I do remember finding a report card from when he was in maybe late elementary school, and it was literally just all D's and C's, and like, he was a terrible student, and he told me so himself. And I thought that was so interesting that he was such a terrible student, but he loves to read. And he told me that they didn't know what it was whenever he was in school and younger, but he was actually dyslexic. And so that was the reason why he failed or did so poorly in so many of his classes, and they just never knew that he couldn't make sense of things, I guess. So it's just amazing to me that now, and I don't know how long he's been reading, I don't know if he did it when he was younger, but now he just reads constantly. I mean, there's just shelves and shelves and stacks of books. I just thought that that was really amazing for him to read and push on with that, because I'm sure that it gave him a really hard time in school, you know, being so poor in school and probably really discouraged to read, and then now as an adult he reads all the time. The second question, what books have you read because of a reading role model, because a reading role model has recommended them to you or loved them? As I said before, no one ever really pushed books on me or told me what and where to read. I literally just had free reign in the library and people's bookshelves, just grabbing whatever I wanted, and no one ever said anything to me. So I was reading romance novels in 5th grade, by the way, because that's what I had available at home. So that's what I read. But as I said before, my papa, he read a lot. He reads a lot, and he has shelves and shelves of books, and I would just go check those out. He reads a lot of Western novels, which I'm not interested in at all, but you know, he likes history in general, so 80% of his bookshelf is like Westerns. But he did have a lot of historical fiction in general on his shelves, and that's, I think, where probably I realized that that genre even existed, is his bookshelves. So I would just go pick up a book, and I distinctly remember picking one up, and it was a historical fiction about prehistoric people. It was just amazing. I loved it, and that really, like, you know, I I guess up to a certain age, you don't think about prehistoric people or any of that stuff. And so that really just woke me up to the past and like all these crazy things that went on and these animals that existed and the really primitive ways that people lived. And so I don't know, I'm really thankful for him that he kept those shelves stocked and he let me take whatever I wanted anytime, as long as I brought it back and as long as he wasn't reading it. So question number 3, how are you trying to encourage reading in other people? The first one's a given because I'm a homeschool mom and I'm really big on reading. You know, I'm constantly buying books for them and reading to them. So I guess for them, it's just picking up a book any spare moment or quiet time we have, and not only encouraging them to read, but encouraging them to come to me, you know, if they're bored or whatever, or they just need to spend some time with me, then I'll say, go get a book. Let's read. Let's sit down and read. So I really try to make time for that. As far as other people go, usually just if I read a book I love, I am pushing it off on all my friends or my husband if I think that they'll like it too. 90% of the time it doesn't work. I buy extra copies of books that I already have and love, and so a lot of times I'll give those out as gifts or just random gifts, mainly because I really want you to read them, but it's also kindness too, I guess. It's just my tricky way of getting you to read. Alright, and the fourth and final question, name 5 standalone books you would want to leave behind for someone you love to find and fall in love with. So I'm assuming I'm dead if I'm leaving books behind. That's just where my mind goes. So 5 books I would want to leave behind. The first one would be Where the Red Fern Grows by Wilson Rawls. And I'm sure most everyone is familiar with this. This is like a classic. And I just really like the message in this book of perseverance and hard work. And if you really want something bad enough, you will do what it takes to get it, to achieve your dreams. Billy works for several summers and just these small little odd jobs where he earns pennies at a time, and he saves up for a long time just to get a pair of hunting hounds. And you know, it also has a big message of love in it too, which I also love. So really just a great book all around. If you haven't read it by some weird chance of fate, read it. Please do. The second book would have to be Cold Mountain by Charles Fraser. And I really like this book because, for one, it takes place centered around the Blue Ridge and the Appalachian Mountains. And I'm sure you've guessed by now, we live in Appalachia. So I really like it for that reason. I love the film too. It is my favorite movie. Like, it's been my favorite movie since I was 14. It has not changed. That will always remain my favorite movie. I listen to the soundtrack to the movie every time I drive somewhere. It stays in my CD player in the car. So, but anyways, I really like this book because I guess without giving it away, the overall message of the book is it really is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. I don't know if this line is in the book, but in the movie, I can't remember, sorry. In the movie, there's a scene where Ada is talking to her father about Inman, and he tells her, you know, I only spent a year with your mother, and the memories from that were enough to fill a life. And that's just a really powerful message. So, and really, you know, I guess another thing you could get from it is every single thing you do, you say or do to someone or in your life has impact, no matter how small you think it is. So every step of this journey of life is worth it. Third book, I don't have. I lent it out to someone because I love it so much, and I'm constantly trying to push it off on my friends to read, so I have someone to talk to about it with. It would be Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean M. Auel. A-U-E-L is how you spell her last name. And I'm kind of, I guess, cheating or breaking a rule. It's not a standalone book, but so many people don't like the rest of the series that they consider Clan of the Cave Bear the standalone book because it's the one people seem to like the most. I love the whole series. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but it's my favorite series besides Harry Potter. I don't know if that says anything about me or what, but I just love them. So the whole story is centered around Ayla, a girl who loses her family, and she's raised by Neanderthal type people, and she's a medicine woman and she heals people with plants. And the reason I really like that is because when we think of history, we think of world wars and kings and queens and medieval times and Vikings and things like that, or at least I do. And that book really opened my eyes up and made me think beyond that, like to prehistory, like not just history, just prehistory, way out there. And so now, like, my mind is constantly blown. Like every time I step outside or I just sit here and like think in the moment, I'm like, holy crap. You know, where I'm standing right now, mammoths and saber-toothed tigers and dinosaurs like walked and lived. Like I look out my window and I just imagine all the ancient and extinct flora and fauna that was out there and all the things that took place, you know, battles like of life and death, you know, by saber-toothed tigers or whatever, like could be right here where I'm sitting, right here where my house is. You know, and it just blows my mind, and it's amazing, and I think it's a good mind-broadening book, you know, if you haven't gotten to prehistory yet. The fourth book is sort of a joke, but really it's not, and it's How to Raise Goats by Carol A. Amundsen. I want to leave behind something practical, and this is practical because, again, if I'm leaving books behind, I assume I'm dead. And one of my biggest fears is, besides leaving my children behind, is leaving my 30 plus animals and my children all in the care of my husband, who will be so overwhelmed. And I'm the goat lady in the family. I know the ins and outs of their care. My husband helps me and supports me with that, but he does not fanatically read about goats, so he doesn't know, you know, the ins and outs of their behavior and, you know, their physical shape that they need to be in and what to look for. So, but really, I bequeath this to anyone who would want to take over my goats. I've actually like jabbed my husband awake in the middle of the night before, and like in a frantic like mind state of, honey, you know, if I die, I know you'll be grieving heavily, but I really need you to promise me that no matter what happens or what time of day I die, you know, if my goats are in milk, then I really need you to go out there and milk them, or else they'll get mastitis and you still need to care for them. And like, just the thought of them suffering, you know, because everybody will forget about them and be focused on me dying as if that's some important event, and forget to care for them. So I leave behind a practical book. The fifth and final book I leave behind would be Watership Down by Richard Adams. I just finished this book a couple days ago, and I'm still kind of in a book hangover from it. Because it's just staying with me and I can't really concentrate on anything else. I'm still mulling this story over. But I would leave this behind to teach you to not judge a book by its cover or by its plot or its storyline. Because if you do, you don't leave yourself room to get surprised. Had I judged this book by its cover and its storyline, I probably wouldn't have read it. But I did, and I'm so glad I did, and it really taught me, you know, to broaden my mind, go outside my scope of what I think I like, because, you know, and it really exposes you to the fact that a really good writer can make a great story out of just about anything, and I was totally entranced in the lives of these rabbits. I am still in there with Bigwig and Fiver and Hazel, and so just really big lessons from this book. It's a beautiful book. A slow read to get started, but once it took off for me, that was it. I read this much in 2 days. I finished it. So definitely leave this behind. So yeah, that's my books, and that's the reader role model tag, and I will link to the original video below, and I would love to see other people participate so I can spend hours of my time watching BookTube instead of taking care of my responsibilities.